If you love discovering the real lives and real injustices that the world's greatest books were built on, subscribe to Page and Flame. New stories every week. Hugo was not a man who wrote from a desk. He walked through Paris at night, through the poorest quarters, and he visited prisons and hospices and courts. He talked to prisoners and to judges and to the women who sold themselves because there was no other way. He read police reports and trial transcripts and newspaper accounts. Jean Valjean, the character, the protagonist, the man imprisoned for stealing bread who spends a lifetime trying to become something better than what the law made of him, was assembled from many real people. Pierre Morin gave the basic situation, the disproportionate sentence, the extended imprisonment, the yellow passport. Other men gave other details. But the character who makes Valjean's transformation possible, the Bishop of Digne, who gives the silver candlesticks to the man who stole them and lies to the police on his behalf, was also real. His name was Charles François Bienvenu Mialis. He was Bishop of Digne from 1805 to 1838. He was known for sleeping on a cot while giving his actual bed to the poor, for giving away his income to the sick, for treating criminals with a personal kindness that his contemporaries found puzzling and his superiors sometimes found excessive. Hugo met him, or knew of him in detail, before he began writing. The scene in which the bishop gives the candlesticks, saying to the policemen who bring back the escaped convict that he himself gave the silver to Valjean, that the candlesticks were a gift, is, Hugo wrote, based on something he believed Mialis was capable of. Whether Mialis actually did it, history does not record. But Hugo made it true. Fantine, the woman who becomes a prostitute to pay for her illegitimate daughter's lodging, was assembled from women Hugo had watched in the courts. The detail of the teeth, which Fantine sells for money, came from a real practice. Poor women could sell their teeth to dentists who made dentures for the wealthy. It paid well by the standards of what they had. Hugo knew this because he had watched it happen. The factory that dismisses Fantine when the foreman discovers she has an illegitimate child, and where the other workers collaborate to expose her, because her moral irregularity reflects badly on them, was based on factories Hugo had investigated. The complicity of ordinary workers in destroying one of their own was, he observed, not an invention. Javert, the police inspector, was based in part on a real officer named François Vidocq, a former criminal who became head of the French detective police and whose memoirs Hugo had read. But Javert's particular quality, his absolute faith in the law as the substitute for conscience, his inability to process the idea that a man could be both lawbreaker and good, was Hugo's philosophical invention and his point. The law, Hugo was arguing, is not the same as justice. And a society that mistakes one for the other will produce Javerts in quantity. Les Misérables was attacked on publication by critics who found it too sentimental, too long, too politically tendentious. The Catholic Church condemned it. The French government found it suspicious. Hugo had been living in political exile in Guernsey for 11 years when he finished it, having fled after Napoleon III's coup d'état. The reading public disagreed with all of them. Within weeks, letters were arriving from across France and beyond, from prisoners, from the poor, from people who had never before read a novel and had somehow read this one. A prisoner wrote from a French jail saying that he had wept through the whole book and that he had recognized himself. A woman wrote from the French countryside saying that she had not been able to sleep until she finished it because she needed to know if Valjean got away. Hugo kept the letters. He had been trying to write a book that would force comfortable people to look at what their society did to the uncomfortable. He had spent 17 years getting it right. It worked. If the books that changed what we think of as possible for individuals, for justice, for human beings, are the ones you return to, subscribe to Page and Flame. There are more stories waiting.